Okay, the next process we're going to talk about when we fill in our Venn diagram. Again, you can use this Venn diagram when you're explaining the two cell processes on your flip grid. So the second one that we're going to explain is respiration. Last week you had an assignment from Ed Puzzle called Cellular Respiration. This one was a little bit longer. You don't need to know everything in great detail, but that's what a study guide does. A study guide gives you a summary of what you think you need to know, or what do you think is most important. Now, animal cells is probably the most important thing, but we talked about that in the last video. Plant cells, these are going to be animal cells. Again, you should use these videos to help fill in your Venn diagram. And taking a look at the beginning, this is the Amoeba Sisters, which you know that Mrs. Bond loves the Amoeba Sisters. And this video is about cellular respiration.
Are you a morning person? One of us is, and one of us is definitely not. Mainly because when I wake up in the morning, it takes a while for me to feel like I get my energy back. It takes a lot of time and coffee for that to happen. Cells don't really have that luxury. They're busy performing cell processes all the time, and many of the processes that they do require energy. Specifically.
Okay, so looking at, this is a review from old stuff, which is when we were back in school, and you should have known that this is actually a bilayer. Why? Because there's one and then there's two, and it's made of lipids. So that's what the cell membrane is made of. That's a little freebie. Okay, so that's important. So respiration makes ATP. Now we're going to talk about the different types of respiration. I already know because there is the first, which is anaerobic respiration, which makes a little energy or few ATPs. And then the second one is aerobic respiration. Aerobic requires oxygen, and it is many ATP is made. That means a lot. Remember, ATP is a molecule, and it stands for adenine triphosphate, and it just means energy. Energy required for our cells. And that's why sometimes we draw it with stars, and sometimes I draw it with like a little explosion.
3 phosphates. When the chemical bond that holds that third phosphate is broken, it releases a great amount of energy.
Okay, so I'm going to skip that for right now. That was an assignment that should have been done last week. It also is an assignment that you should be looking at in order to make your Venn diagram.
So where am I going with this? Well, cells have to make ATP energy. It doesn't really matter what kind of cell you are, prokaryote or eukaryote, you have to make ATP energy. The process for making that ATP energy can be different depending on the type of cell, but you have to make ATP energy. One way that this can be done efficiently is called aerobic.
Okay, so aerobic energy is going to be your eukaryotes. Okay? Now the anaerobic, the opposite, the anaerobic that makes the few ATP, those are your prokaryotes. But both make, and you can actually add that to both make energy. Okay. So I'm going to skip that so you guys can figure that out.
Have many membrane-bound organelles, such as mitochondria. They're going to be kind of...
Okay, so they're a huge deal with this. So where does it happen? It happens inside the mitochondria. Those are the powerhouses. Uh-oh, I don't want to miss this. That's your, hold on, powerhouse. And this is your equation. So we have our formula down here. I'm going to add it right next to it. They're going to look different. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to copy it straight from here. So C6H12O6, that should be something that you know. That's glucose or sugar, also known as sugar, plus O2, which you should know as oxygen. And then there's an arrow, which means that something is happening. There's some sort of reaction occurring. And it makes CO2, that you should know as carbon dioxide, plus H2O, H2O osmosis, right? That's a water. And of course, what I was just talking about, that ATP, also known as energy. So that's what goes in, this is what comes out. Your reactant is where you start, where you end is product. Okay, so take a look. She's about to talk about how they look remarkably similar. I don't know if you noticed that. How do they look remarkably similar? Let's see what she's going to say.
I mean, just look how the reactants and the products just seem to be on different sides. This isn't really a coincidence. See,
Wow.
in photosynthesis, organisms like plants, some types of protists, for example, they make glucose. Notice how glucose is a product. But in cellular respiration, we break the glucose. Notice how glucose is a reactant in order to make ATP energy.
Okay, so that might be something you want to put in both. They work together. They're also, if you look at it, they are opposite, which is why the earth requires both photosynthesis and respiration. Both types of organisms. Pretty neat.
So, photosynthesis makes glucose, and cellular respiration, it breaks glucose. Kind of cool. Now, photosynthetic organisms, they have the best of both worlds because really, they don't just get
So I'm going to skip photosynthesis for right
one
now.
glucose molecule so that you can see
And
this
I'm
this
going
one
to
glucose molecule formula
look at
two
this.
NADH molecules.
Oh, they're talking about this conversion. Now, you don't need to know this in depth. You do need to know that the two types are anaerobic, which is your few ATPs, and aerobic, the two types. You do need to answer it here because they explain it in here. But you don't need to know it for your flip grid. Your flip grid, you are only explaining the photosynthesis, you are explaining respiration, you're explaining where each one happens, you're explaining when it happens, you're explaining how it happens. And you will be graded on that. Krebs cycle is something that's, oh, this is kind of cool. This is the cell membrane. And you can see these protein channels from last topic when we talked about the transport of molecules. You can see that shows like a very good picture of why these are important. They're making energy. So pretty neat. And that's inside your cell.
Now, oxygen, it's the final acceptor of these electrons, and when you have an oxygen
membrane. Okay, so there we go. 38. So I might want to write that down right in my Venn diagram. It makes 38. Wowza. There's some talk that it's 36, which that's true. So it's a little bit of a range, just like all of us have a little bit of a range. So 36 to 38 ATP are made.
And ATP energy.
Whoops, skip that.
ATP energy was our goal. Now, this was just one way of creating ATP energy.
One way.
How important the process of making ATP energy.
Okay, so the importance of the process.
Consider cyanide.
Uh-oh, that will kill you. Cyanide is poison. Woo! I just saw a show where somebody died, a movie where they died by cyanide.
And without being able to continue the electron transport chain, cells can't produce their ATP.
Oh no.
Okay. In a very short time frame.
So
there is also a demand for increased research on various mitochondrial disorders. Mitochondria.
So mitochondria is kind of a tricky one, happening in these cells. And when you draw it, it kind of looks like little like swivels inside of it. And that's so that it can make as much energy as possible as it goes through this like little roller coaster of swivels. Okay, so that's it for the Venn diagram. You should have something like this. I will give you partial credit if you fill it in for tomorrow. So if it's fully filled in and it looks similar to mine, you will get partial credit if you didn't already hand it in. Also, you're going to use this. You may use it for your flip grid. Your flip grid is an assessment where you're going to explain photosynthesis and respiration. And you can use your Venn diagram when you explain it. And that is going to be graded. Make sure you explain both, the difference between them and how they're similar. You have, I think I put it on as 2 minutes. So you want to make sure that you're explaining as much as you can, and you have your maybe some sort of simplification or something that you know what you're going to say when you do your flip grid. Try not to read off your paper. That will result in points off. So just a reminder that will be due on Thursday. Thursday is your assessment on these two different processes, photosynthesis and respiration.